Pizarro and the Fall of the Inca Empire by Ancient History Encyclopedia, adapted by Newsela staff on October 6, 2017. In AD 1533, the Inca Empire was the largest in the world. It extended across South America, stretching from Quito, Ecuador in the north to Santiago, Chile in the south. However, conquered people were not integrated into that empire. This, combined with an Inca civil war and diseases brought by Europeans, meant that the Incas were easy to overtake. Spanish conquistador and explorer Francisco Pizarro and his men arrived in Peru and swept away the Inca. This was the greatest humanitarian disaster to ever take place in the Americas. The Inca Empire. The Incas called their empire Land of the Four Quarters, or the Four Parts Together. Its capital city, Cuzco, was considered the center of the world. Just 40,000 Incas governed a huge territory with some 10 million subjects who spoke over 30 different languages. The Incas believed they were the chosen few. This meant that all speakers of the Inca language controlled all the important political, religious, and administrative roles within the empire. The rise of the Inca Empire had been spectacularly quick. The process of regional unification only began from the late 14th century and significant conquest in the 15th century. The empire was still young when it was to meet its greatest challenge. Pizarro and the Conquistadors. Pizarro and his partner Diego del Almagro led a small group of Spanish adventurers who were eager to find golden treasures, but didn't at first. Then, in 1528, a raft full of treasure was captured. This made Pizarro think there might, after all, be something worth exploring deeper in South America, so he headed for the Andes. After years of slow and careful progress, Pizarro was ready in 1532 to make contact with the Inca Empire. Trouble in the Empire. When the Spanish arrived in Peru, the Incas were already beset by problems. Their massive empire was fragile and full of dissatisfaction. People faced unpopular taxes, and many communities were forcibly resettled to other parts of the empire. The Inca also imposed their religion and art on conquered people. There were some benefits to Inca rule. These included a more regulated food supply, better roads and communications, military protection, and occasional feasts. However, when a rival power threatened Inca rule, loyalty to preserve the empire was somewhat lacking. Some areas were constantly in rebellion, and the Incas were fighting among themselves when Pizarro arrived. Worse still, the Incas were suffering from European diseases, such as smallpox. Pizarro meets Atahualpa. On Friday, November 15th, 1532, Pizarro sent word that he wished to meet King Atahualpa, who agreed to do so. After their first formal, both sides went away planning to capture or kill the other party at the first opportunity. The very next day, Pizarro's men ambushed Atahualpa's arrival in the main square. When the royal troops arrived, Pizarro's men attacked them. The Spaniards' firearms dominated the spears, arrows, slings, and clubs of the Incas. About 7,000 Incas were killed against 0 Spanish losses, and Atahualpa was captured alive. Atahualpa's ransom and death. Atahualpa's safe return to his people was promised in exchange for Inca gold and silver treasures valued at well over $50 million. Even though he got his ransom, Pizarro executed Atahualpa anyway on July 26, 1533. Some of Pizarro's men thought this was the worst possible response, and Pizarro received criticism from the Spanish king. Pizarro perhaps knew that only the king's death could bring about the total defeat of the Incas. The fall of Cuzco. The Spanish then set about conquering the capital city of Cuzco, followed by the rest of the empire. During the first battle, the Spaniards were helped by the local population who were happy to see the Incas defeated. The invaders next defeated an army in retreat at Vicaswaman, but suffered a military defeat after a surprise attack. The next day, the Spanish resumed their unstoppable march, though, and swept all before them. A brief resistance at Cuzco was overcome, and the city fell into Pizarro's hands on November 15, 1533. The treasures of the city and the golden wonders of the Corincancha temple were ruthlessly stripped and melted down. Conquering the empire. The Incas had very little chance of defending a huge empire already difficult to manage. Their spears, slings, and clubs could not match the bullets, crossbows, swords, and steel armor of the Spanish. The Spaniards also had nearly half the population of the old empire fighting for them against the Incas. The Spanish soon faced the same problems as the Incas. Inca rebellion spread, with even one trying to form its own army and win power. Cuzco and the Spanish stronghold of what is now known as the city of Lima were besieged by two huge Inca armies. But the Spaniards held out until the attackers had to retreat. The Inca armies were mostly made up of farmers, and they could not abandon their harvest without starving their communities. The siege was raised again the next year, but once more the Spanish resisted. When they killed the army leaders in an attack, resistance to the new order stopped. In 1572, the Spanish executed the last Inca ruler, Thupa Amaru. Any hope of restoring their once great empire was gone. Conclusion: Atahualpa, following victory in the war with his brother, had killed historians and destroyed Inca records. This is what the Incas called a Pachacuti, or turning over of time and space, an epoch-changing event which the Incas believed periodically occurred through the ages. Later, Atahualpa suffered a Pachacuti himself, and European rulers similarly destroyed all parts of Andean culture they could find. The arrival of the Europeans into the Americas turned it upside down. Nothing would ever be the same again. The Spanish faced their own internal problems, which included the murder of Pizarro. They eventually established a stable colonial government in 1554. For the Andean people, their way of life would be challenged again by new rulers. In 1570, half of the pre Columbian Andean population had been wiped out.